Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Heart of Christ Ministry. I'm your host, Shaun Robert Grant. Big shout out to everybody tuning in, streaming through YouTube. Big shout out to Facebook as well. And big shout out to you who will watch this down the road somewhere. Okay. Yeah. I'm Reverend Shaun Robert Grant. Happy Monday to you once again. Did I say that already? I don't know, but happy Monday to you. Anywho, let's get right into today. But before I do that, there's something that I wanted to talk about, and my spirit feels like I really need to convey this to whoever may need to hear it. And this, much like everything we do here, is all about you finding your way. It's all about you finding the truth of who you really desire to be. And so with that, all I want to say is sometimes there's times in our lives where our freedom is there's an attempt to compromise it, right? There's an attempt to take away the value of the time we place into whatever it is that we desire by someone coming in and believing that what they need you to do is more important. Now, I'm not getting into like specifics or anything, but I feel strongly about this because this used to happen to me a lot all the time before I decided that, what I need to do is most important, right? I needed to make sure that I took care of what I needed to take care of. And I want to make sure that you're doing the same, because sometimes here's what happens. If you compromise your time all the time, your time, your energy all the time to people please, sort of, you wind up resenting yourself and you wind up resenting a whole bunch of other people. So all I'm saying is it's okay. Matter of fact, it's fantastic to help people and to bring value to other people, so to speak. But you have to put yourself first, right? And I say that with so much fervor, so much passion. You must put yourself first, because you are no good to anybody unless you are getting everything that you need to be your best. All right. So I just wanted to bring that out because I feel like that is a lesson that could honestly be taught every single day, because so many of us fall victim to not really being selfish enough, not really being strong enough to say, you know what, no, I have to do this. This is my commitment to myself. And then from there, we'll see what we can do. All right. So just wanted to give you that little tidbit of wisdom as I'm knocking my mouse on the ground. But today we got a great message. As always, I always say that because guess what? I believe in these messages. I believe in the power of them. I believe in you once you implement whatever is being conveyed here. So Heart of Christ Ministry is proud to bring you today's message, living in the sustaining power of divine truth. Okay. This is sometimes just called truth, right? And most people think they know what truth is, but most people are misconceived about the idea of truth. And I like to put divine truth because then it moves your place to that higher perspective, that higher consciousness. So I'm just going to tell you what truth is through today's message. And just to start off, divine truth is pure perfection. Okay. And what I mean by perfection, I've said this a couple times before, but I think this is the time to really dive into it. This is the time to really allow the every definition possible to emerge. Okay. Divine truth remains that unobstructed original state of consciousness that is 100% pure essence of the God force. Okay. And to make it easier here, divine truth is that state that is unobstructed by conditioning, that is unobstructed by your upbringing, that is unobstructed by influences in your life. There is a state of being within you that is you, your true self, that is original, that is perfect, that is not under any circumstances tainted, so to speak. And when I say tainted, the world has tainted everyone. That's why the ego is such a big deal. Okay, that's why the ego can be so overpowering. Can't talk this one. The ego can be so overpowering and overwhelming for so many of us because we've given more power to that and less power to divine truth, right? Divine truth is the perfected state of God that is you, that is me. All right. And in that state, so if we want to really relate to it, and I really want you to get this, in that state, there's no lack, there's no illness, there is no struggle, there is no hardship, there is no pain, there is nothing that would ever fall underneath the perfection that is God itself. And you, I, 7.8, 7.7 billion, everybody has access to it right in there. Okay? But the fact of the matter is, you must prove that you're there, not to just get something, right? Not to get something, but you're there to experience the love that is divine perfection. Because here is how God works. Here's how the universe works. The universe works so where you will not be attached to anything. God has set it up to where if you're attached to something, the only thing you're attached to is love, which is God. So if you want to attach yourself to something, attach yourself to love. And I'm not talking about, love in the sense of I do something for you, you do something for me. No, love in the sense where it emerges throughout your system and you decide that you're going to do it regardless of what comes in. That is true. That's true love, right? The love where you expect in return that 50-50 BS, that's not love. That's manipulation. Okay. But divine truth is that perfection. And divine truth exists every moment of the day, every single moment of the day, every single moment of every day. Divine perfection exists. Okay. So I'm going to give you this example, guys, and then we're going to move on to the next segment of this talk. So think about this real quick. So there's divine perfection, divine truth, right? And then there's everything happening in your life. So I'm going to go down the list of all the potential problems. Okay. Debt, bills, dysfunctional kids, dysfunctional family, need to get the tires changed on the car, having problems with your boss at work, not seeing eye to eye. Okay. That is all egotistical issues, right? Then we'll say that's this column right here. All right. Then we go to this side, divine truth. Imagine all those things in their original perfected state. The original state of being, without conditioning, without thoughts that have been injected into it, distorting the truth of what is, because the truth of what is that it's perfect, right? It's perfect. So you move to the other column. Every single one of those things I just described fall into perfection. Now, most people tell me, well, I get that, but that's not going to pay my bills, right? But see, that's a great point, because you know what that tells me right off the bat, that you're still focused on lack. You're still focused on what you don't have. You're still focused on the untruth, right? When in actuality, you take all your attention and you focus on the truth. And you focus on the truth, even when it seems like this here column is not changing, you focus on the truth until you feel a change within. And guess what? Once the change comes within, because it always does, then you'll see the column over here begin to manifest itself in relation to the divine truth that is perfection column. And it's just that simple. And you know why we falter? Why this seems so difficult and hard? Because most people would rather focus on their problems and their issues as opposed to saying, you know what? God and me, I'm going to focus on you and your perfection, your abundance, your love, your grace, your powerful mind, your vitality, your health. I'm going to focus on all of that, but I'm just going to focus on you, right? Because when you just focus on God, God has a magnificent way of taking your focus and using that energy to expand into your life, healing you or returning you back to your own perfected health, making your financial state abundant, healing your relationships, giving you a greater sense of compassion from the heart so you can relate to people in a sense where you're not judging. And all this comes automatically from focusing on God, from diving into God, and not God in the intellectual sense, God in the sense of feeling his presence, its presence, like I said, because it's very important. I know I say that, I slip up sometimes, but I always catch myself. God is not a he or she. It is a dynamic, benevolent force that transcends gender, right? It can manifest itself as gender, but it transcends gender. That's so important for us to know that, because then we're not falling into the trap of thinking God is a man or God is a woman, because God is everything, right? So with that being said, my objective for you, my advice, my kind advice, focus on the divine truth. No matter what, I don't care, whatever it is, debt, struggle, dysfunction, take your mind off that, put it on this column right here. And even if you don't know what that looks like, because the problem is we don't want to get into intellectually dissecting how all this stuff would turn out if it was in the state of truth. That's not our job. Our job is to just focus on the divine. Focus on the divine, feel the divine's presence, and just let it go, right? Don't tell God how this has to unfold or how that has to unfold or how this should be this way. Get out of that trap of thinking you know better than the power that owns everything, the power that is connected to everything, right? Which is in you, but it wants you to submit and to surrender so it can work through you. Don't intellectualize anything, because that's when we get into trouble, okay? So focus on the God in you, not on your issues, not on your problems. And I promise you, before time, not even much time, a lot of times, it's different for everybody, things begin to transform, and they transform in you first. Okay? Divine truth is perfection. All right. Now, moving right along. Number 2, divine truth is clarity. Now, clarity is not the sexy word that you see all the time. It's not something that is pasted all over the place like you would see law of attraction and all this other stuff. But for us, clarity is so important, because you know what happens when clarity is present. Confusion is not, right? And the one thing the mind does, mind is a beautiful thing, but it's only meant to work in certain ways. One thing the mind can do is make you absolutely crazily confused, right? Because it needs to know everything, right? And that's why a lot of times you can only gain so much clarity with your mind, but you can get divine clarity when you're connected to your heart. Why? Because you only need to know what you need to know right now. right? You only need to know what you need to know right now. And that is your divine truth, your divine perfection, right? You don't need to know anything else, right? You don't need to know how the bills are going to be paid. You don't need to know how your relationship is going to work out after it's hit the rocks or it's at rock bottom. Like, don't use up precious energy that can go into you focusing on divine truth by trying to figure out how to fix problems that you only have a one, maybe two ways or perspectives of doing it. Right? That's the thing. Like, so here's personal self, egoic self, here's God self. Okay. Personal egoic self, two, maybe three different ways, sometimes more, we have of finding a solution, right? God self, unlimited, right? Unlimited. Just imagine, okay? Just imagine being the size of an ant and being on the ground and only being able to see one perspective from something. Now imagine that being in that same position and being able to see it from an unlimited perspective. That is the divine. Divine sees it from all sides, shapes, angles, forms, formless, anything. It sees it from all those angles. And that self is in you, right? So we always get to choose. Do we choose the limited egoic side, right? And we put all energy into that only to be mentally exhausted later on? Or do we choose the God self, the God side that can see things in an absolutely unexplainable, eternal, unlimited way, right? And then all of a sudden just picks one that's perfect for us. How easy is that? Actually, it's not easy. It's simple, but it becomes easy when we make that choice, right? So we have to be the ones to make that choice. And once we make that choice, then we begin to see, okay, there's something to this, okay? There's something to this. So clarity, something, the exact scenario I just told you, that brings so much clarity because that shows you that you don't need to clasp and clamor to try to figure out a solution that wastes energy, right? That wastes energy. If you find yourself, I guarantee you, you find yourself being tired and you're not really doing much, you're likely thinking yourself to death, right? And what do I mean by that? Thinking yourself to death means that you are coming up with every different possible scenario you possibly can to solve something that can be solved simply by recognizing divine truth and recognizing there's perfection in your life. That's simple. That's clarity. That's splitting it down the middle, allowing you to make a choice in solving everything as it relates to you. Sometimes like that, sometimes in a bit of time. But either way, all the energy you've used on thinking, you can now use towards being creative. You can now use towards living in a life of pure divine love, of allowing things to resonate within you and through you, right? When we learn how to conserve, not even conserve, but just not distribute it to stuff that's a waste. That's the biggest thing that we have to wrap our minds around is that why think all of these thoughts and be exhausted when we can make one decision, right? Make one connection in the morning. Jesus says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all these things will be added unto you. And what that means is that seek the kingdom within yourself, seek the divine within yourself, right? And everything is added unto you. It works itself out, right? Because you've decided to say, divine truth is where it's at. God is where it's at. In me, I'm focused on that. And then I'm going to move through life with ease. Pretty simple, right? Not always easy, but pretty simple. Okay. Last but not least, divine truth is absolute freedom. Okay. So I want to take you back to that example that we gave earlier in this episode, not earlier today. And so I got a few minutes here. We talked about the list, right, of all the problems on one side, and then just put divine truth on the other side. Okay. So I mentioned in the description that it was my primary objective to find freedom wherever I could. But see, I was looking in the wrong place. I was looking in the wrong area. I was looking to material things outside myself to discover a freedom that could only be within me. Right? So once again, you take that list of problems and then you take that list of divine truth that is perfection. Okay? You take your eyes off the list of problems and you place your eyes on divine truth and divine perfection. Guess what? That's freedom. That's freedom. Why? Because on this list, once again, God can't no lack. There can be no lack in God. There can be no struggle. There can be no illness. There can be no disease. There can be no hardship. There can be none of this stuff. And even if it looks like it initially from a physical appearance standpoint, it turns itself around, because the only way it's looking like that is because you've slipped a bit in your consciousness in recognizing divine truth. But once you get back into recognizing divine truth, guess what? There's freedom, absolute freedom, right? Florence Scovel Shinn, The Game of Life and How to Play It. Amazing, amazing, amazing author this woman was back in the early 1900s. She was writing about this stuff. And she said, we can never, basically same thing Jesus said, we can never pay attention, right? Don't judge by appearances. This is what Jesus Christ said. Don't judge by appearances, but by right judgment. Right judgment is divinely right thinking, divinely right feeling, divinely right acting. So are you right judgment, right? Which is divine truth, or are you judging off of appearances? Because I'm telling you, no matter what anything looks like today, what the physical life has shown us is it's always subject to change. It's always subject to transform, which means, guess what? You ain't got to be broke forever. Which means, guess what? You don't have to live in a shack or with your parents or whatever. You know, you don't have to drive the same rust bucket. Physical life has proven to us that it changes. Nothing ever lasts in physical life because energy is always transforming. It's always moving itself, right? But what we can do is create a stable ideal that ensures that everything that comes into our physical life is going to be resonant with that divine truth. Okay? That simple. It's that simple. Take your eyes off the shit. How many ministries actually say that? And put it on divine truth. It's that simple, right? Not always easy, but it's simple. And the moment you start getting confused, this is the easiest. God has set this up to where it's so easy for us, but we have to get out of our heads a lot of times. The moment you start getting confused, the moment you start getting worried, guess what? You're focusing more on your problems and not on your truth. I'm telling you. Once you commit to this, when I say commit, by all means, you just don't care what's happening. If it's not in alignment with truth, you stay focused on the truth, right? Stay focused on the truth. And you know what the truth is. You know what the truth will eventually bring about, because what we focus on expands. So you focus on the truth, and all of a sudden, truth begins to expand in your life. You know, the bank calls you, they've wiped out your debt completely, right? You go to work, you get an emotion, a promotion you never expected. You know, these are types of things that happen, different for everybody. But Once we align with truth, truth begins to manifest itself into our lives. And it's freedom. It's freedom because you don't have to worry about anything else. That is freedom, right? Your livelihood is not contingent upon something else. That's freedom. It's contingent upon divine truth and your ability to stay focused on it. And so you just stay focused. Stay focused. Stay dialed in. I'm telling you, man, this is a powerful concept. I have not the time to talk about as much as I want, but 25 minutes is a great start. No doubt about it. But just realize, and I'll leave you here before we get ready to get going. If your mind is giving you issues, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling all these emotions that are outside the emotion of love, you're in your head. You're in your head and you're thinking about your problems. That's the only time you could ever experience all that stuff that's the opposite of what God is. When you're in your head trying to figure out how you're going to make something happen, as opposed to stepping into your heart and saying, basically, God, in me, I trust you. And I'm going to let go and allow you to work. Right. And you just allow stuff to happen, because at that point, it always happens in your favor. Trust me. Stress, hardship, heartache, all that shit, you don't need it. Like, refuse to focus on that anymore. Move your focus to divine truth, right? That's why sustaining power of life is divine truth. Focus there, and I promise you, your life will instantly get better, and it'll start on the inside, and then it will start to move itself out to your circumstances. But remember, it's all about truth. All about truth. All right. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. If you've had a great time and you want to talk a little bit more about something, feel free to message me at ShaunG04@gmail.com. Or if you're on my Facebook, you can send me an inbox message. And, I'd be happy to pray over some stuff. I'd be happy to help you to come to any divine conclusion, divine solution that you may feel suits you, that the divine feels may suit you. More than happy to do that. Or if you want to send a review, send a comment, send, some feedback or whatever it is, I'm open. Okay. Because the only way I can get better is if I'm open to stuff like that, and I choose to be open to it. So thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your likes and your loves. That's greatly appreciated. But yeah, write to me. I'm open. I will get to it as soon as I can, and we'll get back with you from there. Okay. That's one of the fun parts of doing a ministry as such. And then last but not least, donate. Hey, all right. If you find that this content has benefited you, if you find that this content is resonating on a level of divine love and divine truth for you, guys, by all means, donate today at Venmo, Heart of Christ Ministry, PayPal, ShaunG04@gmail.com. I'm not going to give you the whole spiel about how it supports the ministry, because if you've been here enough, you already know how it supports the ministry. And with that being said, honestly, if you're getting stuff out of it, just pay it forward. It doesn't even have to, if it's not even through donation, it's through sharing it with other people, because this is stuff everyone needs to know if they're going to take back their lives, in the sense of not being victimized by outdated, traditional, fundamentalist beliefs about stupid stuff, So that's kind of judging. I shouldn't say that. But at the same time, pay it forward if you're not in a place to donate, because that's what matters. People need to know the truth, right? Because as Jesus said so eloquently, and you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And when you understand the truth, right, it really does set you free. So with that being said, if it's in you and you feel good about it, you feel up to it, donate. Heart of Christ Ministry, Venmo, PayPal, ShaunG04@gmail.com. Yes. And that concludes today's message. I got a meeting I got to go to. So with that being said, guys, it's always a pleasure. Have an absolutely wonderful day ahead. And I'm sure I will see you soon. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.